cross-cultural leadership is essential in today's world. Whether you're managing a cross-cultural team or expanding into new markets, understanding your colleagues, the business, the culture, these are all key elements that make a business successful and that make a leader successful on their own. We talk to visionary leaders from different cultures, from different backgrounds, and how they respectively lead their teams successfully. Now, welcome to another episode of Visionary Voices Collaborating for a Better Tomorrow. Today's subject matter is cross-cultural learning, leading in a globalized world. My esteemed guests are Aminata Kane, CEO of Orange Money. Welcome.
Thank you.
And Amnah Ajmal, Executive Vice President, Market Development, Mastercard, EEMEA. Welcome.
Thank you.
Now, Aminata, if I can start with you, trust plays an essential role in building relationships with your customers, partners, and employees alike. So what kind of practices would you put into effect in building trust in a globalized world?
Trust is one of the most important things when it comes to money, specifically. And in our industry, for mobile money, we have different expectations from our various stakeholders. Right? So customer, they expect for you to have their money in the right place where it's safe and to be able to do their transactions. Regulators, specifically when you become systemic, central banks, they expect you to comply by the law, but also to make sure that you are available everywhere. Our network agents, our customers, our partners, and in general, even our employees are really focusing on that. So trust is important and it's an essential part of who we are. What we've seen is that there are a few things that you need to put in place for the trust to be complete. The first one is transparency, right? So what are your tariffs? Where are you available? What's happening to a transaction? So this is very important. Second is reliability. If I'm doing a transaction, I want to make sure it's complete, that it goes to the end, and that my data are protected. You do have a number of countries that are increasingly putting a pressure on data confidentiality, which is absolutely normal. And customers need to feel safe with their data. They need to be able to trust us that we're not going to sell them or to do anything wrong with them. But at the same time, they want to be able to access and to know what exactly you've done with their data, which goes back to transparency. So this is what we've put in place. We have some very strong platforms that we constantly monitor. We ensure that we have fraud prevention. We ensure that we comply by the laws of the countries where we're present. All of these mechanisms, processes, robust systems and platforms, controls at the highest standards in the world are put in place to make sure that we continue building the trust that our customers, our partners, our central banks are putting in us. And also our employees. They want to make sure that they work for a company that is trustworthy, and we expect a lot from them, and they expect even more from us.
Wonderful. And Amnah, if I can take the question to you from a cultural understanding angle, what kind of role does that play in building strong partnerships with your local businesses and communities?
So looking after 80 markets in this region and multiple industries, you would see a lot of differences coming from different cultures, different backgrounds, different industry. But I think there are a few things that are common, and Aminata mentioned it. Whether it's your business partners or your customers or the communities that you're serving, they want to have trust. Without trust, you cannot do business. Without trust, you cannot give back to the communities. Trust is the foundation of any partnership or relationship, right? So I think few of the things that I would like to add in addition to what Aminata said was, first is, as a brand, what is your mission? What is your value? What is your purpose? So when we say Mastercard is about doing well by doing good, in my actions, am I reflecting that mission, or it's just a statement, right? And through all the work that we do with telcos like even Orange, who is one of the market leaders in the continent, the purpose is to drive financial inclusion. So I'm living by my promise of doing well by doing good. The work that we do in the space of SMEs, right, who are very disadvantaged in most of the parts of the world, and more so in some with regards to female SMEs, like Africa would be a great example, right? So understanding those nuances and giving back to what your mission statement says, that's the foundation of building the trust. So people know this is what the brand promised and this is actually what they're doing. So you're walking the talk. That to me is a fundamental thing. I think second after that is also trying to develop a deeper understanding of the pain point and the problem that you're solving for. My grandfather used to say not every problem needs to be solved. So you need to understand the pain point that your clients, because I'm in the B2B industry, or your clients' consumers are facing, and then build solutions that actually would not only solve that pain point, but do it in a safe way. We're talking about payments, we're talking about customers' money, customers' transactions, safe, secure, fast. So for me, your brand promise, your value, your mission, and the products and solutions that you design, which makes customers feel comfortable, safe, and secure, are two of the very important elements in operating among different cultures, multiple geographies, but with a consistent promise.
Wonderful. Now, we talked a little bit about trust. I want to take a question to both of you, please, on how companies are, or I'll take that from the start. Globalization has become truly a part of the financial services. Now, how are companies changing their leadership approach in this cross-cultural global financial world? Please.
So when you cover many markets, you can start your day with Botswana, and then you'll be with Madagascar, you'll be Jordan, DRC, and you finish with Senegal, right? So you have to ensure that everybody in these countries and these markets feels equally seen and heard. And what is true for our teams there is true for your customers, is true for your partners, is true for your central banks, is true for your governments. So the one-size-fits-all doesn't work at all, and has not been working for quite some time. And the companies have evolved by doing several things. The first thing that companies have been doing, and especially at Orange, is ensure that we have a deep understanding of our markets, and we have also a lot of people from the market leading these companies. So most of our opcos in Africa are led by people from Africa, right? So this is the first thing. Create and ensure that you have a deep understanding in the market, and then you have representativity so that people can push and understand the ideas. The other thing that is important is rotation and international mobility, because you will get great ideas from one country and being able to apply them to another country, but only if you allow this mobility. How do you incentivize it? You make sure that people talk, work on projects globally, get to know each other, build their networks, and therefore it allows for a broad and more fluid perspective on our environment. One thing that I've also seen that works pretty well was the movement between corporate and operations. And I myself am a product of that, right? I've been in markets for years. I've been in Senegal, I've been in Sierra Leone, and then I've come to the corporate, right? So I cover several countries now in my Orange Money job. But everything that I do is informed by the experience that I've had on the ground. I've spent so many days in the provinces, in the regions, selling SIM cards, opening Orange Money accounts, selling data bundles. So I know, and my decisions that I take on the global perspective are informed by that. So it's important for us when it comes to leadership to bring that from the ground perspective, but also define with that a strategy that is going to be also consistent, because we are one brand, right? Orange is one brand, and we also want our customers and our partners to have a good look and feel, the same look and feel. I've had once a customer telling me, I'm frustrated because I travel very regularly to this other country, and I don't feel that my app in my country is as good as the app in the other country. And within, I think, 2 weeks, we're able to fix it and make sure that they had the same. So customers and partners expect a certain level of things from a brand, a global brand like Orange or Mastercard, but they also want to make sure that they individually feel seen and heard.
Wonderful. And Amnah, same question to you, please.
So I think to layer on top of what Aminata said, I would say diversity and inclusion plays a very important role, because the world is so much more connected now versus even if I take like 6-7 years back, right? Everyone has a voice. That voice can be heard. You have social media platforms, right? So it's a very diverse, connected world in a virtual way. How do you foster that culture of collaboration when your people are so far spread out? You know, you're talking about people sitting in 40 different countries. How do they come together? Because you're talking about driving innovation for your clients. So I think that sense of collaboration comes when there are two things that can happen. One is people are comfortable in making mistakes. It's a super agile world today. You don't need years of research to launch a product. You can repivot, you can launch fast, you can fail fast, you can repivot, relaunch again. So that agility and that empowerment that the team feels, that allows them to make mistakes and keep up to the expectation of the customers. And the second thing would say culturally that connectivity that you can establish. Sitting in the headquarters, there's so much so that I understand. But if I'm launching a solution, let's say for Senegal, right? It's so important for me, and to Aminata's point, understanding that the problems of, let's say, an SME farmer in Senegal could be completely different than an SME farmer in Kenya, right? So how do you make those people who are sitting in those markets included, not only in defining the problem, but also in actually making the solution? Then it's all about going back to our first point of trust. Once you have included the people, you've taken a diverse group, not only diversity from a gender standpoint, but from a location, from a culture standpoint, you've put them together. They know they can make mistakes. They're comfortable doing that. They know that there is a safety that is provided to them. It allows them to do that. You drive that innovation and you connect them, and you're solving the problem, which actually is reinforced by the people on the ground. You really have a great teamwork that translates into excellent client feedback, because this is exactly what our clients need.
Wonderful. And Aminata, if I can take this question to you, you mentioned previously that you attach great importance to local knowledge, cross-cultural learning. But what are some of the challenges you would have faced when you're expanding to new territories in Orange Money? And how do you deal with those operational challenges?
I think the first barriers that we see when we want to enter a new market or want to expand Orange Money is really the regulatory framework. And when we're talking about money, as Amnah was saying, it's important and sensitive. So it's not something that governments play with, right? If there is one thing that nobody plays with, it's really money. And in our industry, in the payment and mobile money industry, we have to abide by the rules. So you would want to go to a market, and the first thing is that you wouldn't get the approval from a regulatory perspective, right? So this is where partnerships exist, and we've seen some players, some fintechs who really want to partner with us or partner with banks. More and more us, more than banks, because we have a wider reach and a wider network. But the regulatory framework is the number one thing that we have to make sure that we understand. And for some time, and I think we have to give good credit to the central banks, for some times our model was not too clear to them, because mobile money has started into the 2010, 2015. We have rapidly shifted from an innovation, value-added services to something that has become systemic. When you look at Orange, we're present in 17 countries, 100 million wallets open. So it's immense. We've become systemic. We have 700 transactions per second. So becoming so systemic, now the central banks have understood and adapted. A lot of them have put in place specific regulation for fintechs. And before it was just the banking regulation that we had to abide by, and now we have fintechs that is banks. So these regulatory frameworks are evolving, but that's the number one. The second is distribution. We have to be honest. The big difference between us and banks, and the reason why we're able to become so systemic and to leapfrog in the mobile money industry, in the transfer industry, and specifically in the financial inclusion, is because we have a wide distribution network. For us, we have 600,000 points of sales across Africa. If we look at the bank, go to any country in sub-Saharan Africa, 20% of the population has a bank account. Roughly 20 to 25. In some countries, it goes up to 60. But you have almost as many people as people who have phone, who have mobile money accounts. So the reach is way different. And if you want to go to a new market, you have to build this distribution network. And it costs millions and millions of dollars to build, because you have to incentivize the network agent. You have to make sure that they have a proper point of sale. Goes back to the trust, right? If you have somebody who is trustworthy with the orange logo, you will go there to put your money and to deposit your money, to withdraw your money, rather than if you go and you see something that is not necessarily trustworthy. So distribution network is number 2 and is very, very critical. Number 3 is strong platforms and technology. We see every day frauds that are increasing by numbers. So the same way you wake up in the morning and you think about how am I going to innovate, how I'm going to launch great product, fraudsters think, how am I going to fraud this, right? And you have to make sure that you prevent and you also stop. Right, so internal controls that are strong, verification mechanism to ensure that you don't have that. So very strong tech that you have to invest massively in. This is the third thing. When you go to a new country or you want to expand, you have to keep that in mind, and that this is going to be one of the big things you're going to invest in.
And can I just ask you, mobile money accounts, you said about 60% of the people have these accounts in certain countries. How quickly are they growing?
So we're growing very fast, right? So we see that on a year-on-year basis, we grow on more than 20% every year. So we are able every 2-3 years to double the number of accounts in some of our countries. It's important because people have a phone, right? So if you have 20% of bankerization rates, you have 90% to 100% of phone and on telecommunication penetration. So it means people have phone in their hands. And of these, 60 to 70% have data, right? So they can use mobile money with data on the app, that we call Maxit, or with USSD. If you do a short code, hashtag 11443, and then you can use your mobile money already. So the fact that it's so easy and convenient helped us leapfrog that system, the financial system. And now we've become much more systemic than any banking system in Africa.
I see.
Also, just to add, I think digitization plays a big role, and Africa has a massive youth population, and they are rapidly accelerating that digitization because they are more easily adapting the new technologies. They are more mobile friendly, more digitally savvy. That's also accelerating the entire mobile money growth. And to Aminata's last point, the beauty of mobile money is in the simplicity of the solution. It's simple, it's intuitive. And the telcos have the data, they have the distribution, they have the trust. These are the 3 things you need in financial services. If you ask me, how can you be a bank and people would trust you for money? Data, distribution, trust. Telcos have it all.
Absolutely. And I want to ask you I'm a little bit of a Mastercard specific question here. Massive company, cross-cultural, global company. What are some specific initiatives that you have to foster cross-cultural understanding with so many employees from all around the world?
So I would tell you a story. It's with one of my past employers. I had always worked in Europe, and I was moving from Europe to Asia. And they said to me, since you've never worked in Asia, I was moving from Poland to Singapore. So they would like to do a cultural training, which is done for most of the execs. So I went to that cultural training, and of course, dealing with Singaporean Chinese and Malaysian Chinese and Indonesia, Taiwan, they were new markets for me. And 1 year later, I met the global talent head who actually had recommended that training. And she asked me, so how do you feel? You're doing really well. I just wanted your feedback on that training. And I said to her, I don't think so it added a lot of value. She's like, why do you say that? Europe is so different from Asia, and the culture mix is over here different, the cultural values are different, and it's very different leadership style that you operate in. I said, absolutely true. But the fundamentals of what your employees, your clients, your customers expect from you is the same regardless of which culture you belong to. So if you look at employees, they want someone who would have their back. They would want a leader who walks the talk. They're able to sense authenticity from you, right? They want someone who can actually not only paint a vision jointly with them, but also remove the showstoppers, which are many, especially the world in which we operate in, to help them achieve that vision, right? Would it be the same in Europe versus Asia versus Middle East? Probably yes, right? There are little cultural nuances that you pick up, and I think for that, you need to really make sure that you are surrounded by people who are smarter than you, who are better than you, who have more local knowledge, and you have the empathy and the listening skills. And a lot of what we do at Mastercard in terms of fostering collaboration, not only internally, but also externally, because our innovation strategy is based on collaboration, collaborating with fintechs, with telcos, with retailers, with PSPs, because we sit in the center of the ecosystem, right? In order to drive innovation, we have to bring different partners together. A large part of it is based on the same fundamental principles, right? A deeper understanding of their problems, but listening, empathizing. I cannot propose a solution without listening. I have to, in order to understand their pain point, I have to put myself in their shoes. Empathy. I would treat my people the same way, right? In order for me to have in order for them to respect me, they need to understand that actually I'm listening to them. I'm empathizing with them. It's true for my clients also, regardless of the culture, right? A sense of urgency. We are in a very fast-moving world, and 75% of my team is Gen Z and millennials, right? And at Mastercard, we talk about like getting things done, pivoting, learning. Especially my world with non-financial institutions and so many segments, customers are entering into different industries to diversify their businesses, right? So there's less know-how of the new world that they're entering into, like telcos, from core GSM to financial services, a completely different world, right? So my team needs to have that agility. They need to have that sense of urgency to respond to the customer needs, to respond to the market needs. They expect the same from me as a leader, that I'm able to remove the showstoppers and obstacles that come in their ways in order for us to deliver faster go-to-market. So I believe the fundamental values of you as a leader, irrespective of the culture, remain the same. They apply to your employees, they apply to your clients, partners. Honestly, they also apply to your personal life. They're pretty much the same.
Wonderful.
My kids would expect me to walk the talk. You know?
Yes.
Probably to build on what Amnah was saying, I think for some leaders it's easy and they have it in them because they've already coming from a diverse background, they've traveled in different places, they've felt at some point in their career or personal lives marginalized or overlooked. And I think that not every leader has this has a cultural lens or gender lens, and so that diversity lens is important when you, especially when you want to become a leader at a cross-cultural level and multi-country level. And I think that the one thing that we could definitely push forward is really for the people who've not been having this experience of international or cultural,
absolutely.
or not necessarily international, but multi-community, multicultural, to really keep in mind that having sometimes to put the gender glasses and the diversity one are very important, is very important.
Wonderful. And I'll continue with you, if I may. Now, in the areas that Orange Money operates, how do you contribute to increased financial inclusion and economic development? And how do you not leave behind the underserved communities? Are there any specific initiatives you can share with us?
So the great thing about my work is that we don't have a responsibility to contribute to financial inclusion, but we have to build it, actually. We start from, in our region, we start from a place where most people don't have a bank account. Most people don't know how to read and write, and cash has been dominant forever, right? In some of the regions where we work, the areas are very remote. They sometimes undergo climate transitions. So you do have a lot of catastrophes that are happening. And this is the reality of our markets. So our responsibility is really to build it. We build it first by proximity, right? So I was mentioning earlier that we have a lot of retail points of sales and retail points. And for people, it's very critical. For the longest time, we thought that people could do everything remotely. But what COVID has shown us is that people need proximity. And they don't want a fully digital bank, or they don't want a fully digital payment service. What they want is to be able, when they need, to speak to someone. I was once in one of the most remote areas in Sierra Leone, close to the border of Guinea, and we opened a small franchise. And we had so many people from the village saying, "We're so happy that you're here. We were using mobile money before, but now every time we have an issue, we know that we can knock at the door. Somebody who understands us, who looks like us, is able to give us some answer, and we trust that person to be able to fix our issues for something that is so sensitive." So proximity is really number one way for us to be able to improve the financial inclusion. The second thing is really improving the literacy. So most people at the beginning, they started by using mobile money to do as a saving account, right? So they would put money there and then they would withdraw it at some point later of the year. But now, with everything that we've been pushing in terms of products and services that were created by listening to the needs of people, we've been able now to accelerate on transfer and then international transfer. We have almost 80% market share when it comes to our international remittance transfer in the West African Francophone markets. Transfer internationally to other continents, right? So we have more than 800 corridors worldwide where you can send and receive money from. So we're connecting Africa to the rest of the world. We've also, after that, moved to microloan. So people were saying, it's great, but sometimes I don't have the money on my account. What do I do? How can I use my money? And how can I borrow money instead of borrowing at the market? What can I do for that? And this has been a life-changing product that we've launched in Côte d'Ivoire. We launched a bank, actually, because we needed the license. Regulatory frameworks are important. And now you can borrow $100. And most market women, that's what they need to start their day. They need the $100. They buy their supply, they sell all day, and then they pay it back within 20 days. And we've seen a decreasing default rate because women, especially women, they know how to do this thing now, and they use it, and it's vital for growing of their business. So we're not only contributing to financial inclusion, we're driving it. And on top of it, we have a strong responsibility to ensure that people are not only doing basic services when it comes to mobile money, but they are also actually doing more and more. And this is a very good virtual circle for the economy. We're creating jobs. We're ensuring that people have enough funding for them to be able to go on with their lives and create other jobs. So the economy is becoming more and more formal, but also you can see that people are creating new jobs and are going on with their lives. So it's a huge pride.
Wonderful. And I want to end it by getting some words of wisdom from two leaders of the financial services industry. The question goes to both of you, please. What are some important competencies and skills to be an effective leader in this cross-cultural world that we live in? And if we can take it from the financial services industry point of view, Amnah, I'll start with you, please.
I would say, and maybe it's also true for Aminata's industry, that I think we need to uplift more women. Financial services, technology, payments, it's still largely a male-dominated industry. Believe it or not, out of my 300 clients that I manage across the region, Aminata is one of the only 5 women. I'm talking about between 300 clients, right? So I think as leaders, I definitely feel it, that I have a responsibility to uplift women. Whether they are through my client partnerships, whether it's through my professional work, whether it's through my personal contribution by mentoring women, whether it's as small as a thing as providing someone feedback who attended a meeting and did not say a word, although she was the smartest person in the room. When you leave the room and you just tell her, why did she not speak? She wasted an opportunity. So for me, I think the more I have been in this region and I've looked at the industry, the more passionate I feel about uplifting women.
Wonderful. And Aminata, for you, please.
I could not agree more. What Amnah said is beautiful in the way that I feel it personally, and I keep having these conversations with other women. So today you have 2 women, but how often does it happen, right, at this level of leadership? Yesterday somebody was telling me women are over-mentored, under-sponsored, underfunded. So this is something that we have to be absolutely adamant about and unapologetic about, right? How can we push more women? It's also true when it comes to diversity of origins and background, which is something that is very keen for me, coming from a large group at the international level. We need to make sure that we are able to send talents from the continent to everywhere in the world, right? I can't wait for the day where we're going to appoint a CEO originally from Botswana in Poland. When are we going to appoint somebody from Morocco in Belgium? And when are we going to appoint a Senegalese in Spain? So this is the kind of things that I would want to see much more than what is currently happening, is people from the West or from the US or from Europe going everywhere. We need access, and we need to unlock the opportunities for talents from everywhere. And also the youth, right? So I kept hearing, I was appointed CEO, I was 33. And for the longest time, the conversation was about my age, not about my potential, not about my abilities. It was about my age. And on top of that, I'm a woman, I'm from Africa. That was a bit much for a lot of people. But I'm serious about my work. I'm serious about my job. And I truly believe in the purpose that we have, which is really to improve the financial inclusion of the continent. And therefore, we need to give more opportunities to the youth. Sometimes the millennials and the Gen Z, especially the Gen Z, they feel overlooked because there is such a generational gap in the mindsets between millennials and the Gen Zs, right? But they have fantastic, phenomenal ideas, and I love how they shake things unapologetically. They're very happy to say, okay, this is not for me. I'm not going to sweat it for 4 years. I'm going to do it for 6 months, and then when I'm not happy, I'm going to move. So we call that lack of resilience. They call that knowing what you want and going after you for, right? And I think this week we need to include more of them. So it goes back to what Amnah was saying. If you really want to be a great leader, you have to listen and you have to give opportunities to others. And giving opportunities is not only mentoring, it's really sponsoring. It's really walking the talk, right? So how are we going to make sure that we provide opportunities to the people who generally who for most of the time have been overlooked? And how do we prepare them? And how do we support them? And how do we allow them to fail? And I think if we have this and we have more people having this conversation and doing this proactively, we will have a much better leadership around.
Wonderful. Well, on those wise words, I'll thank both of my guests for joining us. Thank you for your insights.
Thank you so much.
Thank you so much.
Both here. Thank you very much.